Now we're ready.
All right, I hope you caught the baby crying over there, because that's what the party is, holds dear. All right, we've come to the high point, and it is my great honor and privilege to give to you our candidate for the next 18 months or so. And who knows, we might have a president here. Peter?
Brian, thank you so much, and thank you for being such a great example and leading our party in the 2020 campaign. I also want to thank Jack. Come on, you've got to, this has been a fantastic convention. And Jack has done yeoman's work to put together such a great program, a lot of time and a lot of resources, I'll just say, in coordinating this. Thank you very much, Jack. Thank you, Leah. What a fantastic message. And Lauren, thank you for your kind words. We are blessed to have this type of individual in our party, Leah and Lauren. Let's hear it. So it's an honor to be here with you tonight. I want to say that last month, the American Solidarity Twitter account posted a quote from G.K. Chesterton. Chesterton came up earlier today. It's a quote that I'd heard before, and it's one that I sincerely appreciate. And Patrick, I think, was responsible for doing this. So thank you for giving me fodder, Patrick, for my talk. It's one that, as I say, I've appreciated very much, but I'm reading it as I was preparing to embark on a presidential campaign. I was really struck by how profound it was, despite its real simplicity. So characteristic of Chesterton. Because Chesterton, of course, is affectionately known as the apostle of common sense. And it's no doubt that he's a hero of many of ASP members and anyone else who's really an advocate of Christian democracy. And as we heard, it was Chesterton, along with his contemporary Hilaire Belloc, roughly a century ago, that introduced this economic theory that we call distributism. Something that we know, but we've got to tell the world more about. And their inspiration came from who? Leo XIII in his epic encyclical Rerum Novarum, which is really the cornerstone of Catholic social teaching and its development through the years from 1891 to the present day that we hold to. So what was it that the ASP tweeted? Well, it's a well-known line from Chesterton's 1925 work, The Everlasting Man. A dead thing can go against the stream, but only a living thing can go against it. Now that's simple but profound, and it's an appropriate metaphor, I think, for the American Solidarity Party. A dead thing can go against the stream, but only a living thing can go. A dead thing can go with the stream, but only a living thing can go against it. So the ASP, at least figuratively, in several ways, is going against the stream. Now, it doesn't enjoy the favored status of the major parties. Lauren and I are confident of ballot access in just one state so far. I'm not expecting to be on the debate stage with the Democratic or the Republican candidates. I'm not holding my breath for an invitation from Meet the Press or 60 Minutes. You won't see any campaign TV commercials, for better or for worse. My face won't be on billboards or in the post office, I hope. See, the baby boomers got that. My name won't be plastered on yard signs up and down Main Street of America. I probably won't get a nickname from Donald Trump. So I'm being lighthearted, but of course these are real circumstances. Despite all this, Lauren and I have a great message to share. The ASP message. And all the while not forgetting that the ASP is going upstream. In many ways, we're going against the culture. We all know that the ASP positions on life are largely contrary to culture. Positions on abortion, euthanasia, capital punishment, and they're certainly contrary to the present administration. And if they're not contrary entirely to the other major party. They are often distinct, at least, from its candidates' messages, especially in this post-Roe era. So, to begin, at the very outset of my presentation, I'm going to tell you that I've hitched my wagon to the pro-life plan that was authored by our fellow Board of Advisors member, along with Leah, Charlie Camosi. He wrote this plan, this post-Roe plan, along with Jonathan Van Maren, Eric Scheidler, and Josh Braun. And there's many other signatories, Leah included. And it includes these proposals that I think so nicely address some of the issues that Lauren just brought up. So I'm quoting now. Accessible and affordable health care for parents and children, including expanding Medicaid funding for prenatal care, delivery, and postpartum expenses to reduce the financial barriers to welcoming a new child. Expanded child tax credits that promote family formation and lift children out of poverty. Paid parental leave that ensures every infant can receive the close attention and nurturing care they need from their mothers and fathers in the early months of life. Flexible work hours to enable families to establish a tranquil home life with predictable work schedules and better options for meaningful part-time employment. Affordable childcare options that support working parents without disincentivizing the choice to raise young children at home that many families say they would prefer. Fully enforce existing prenatal child support laws while seeking effective new ways to demand that all men take responsibility for the children they father. Now, these are positions that many in America can and do embrace. But there's no such collection of policies found among the major parties' proposals. The ASP can advocate for them, though, and challenge the status quo. Members of the American Solidarity Party are used to being different, even countercultural. And even if the ASP is not always battling cultural pushback, it can be up against prevailing thought, such as in the economic theory that I mentioned. Distributism is not yet a household world, except perhaps for the aficionados, such as we had today, and Alex, and for the aforementioned, of course, Mr. Chesterton. I mentioned that he's the apostle of common sense. Did I also mention that he was known as the Prince of Paradox? And those titles are more alike than different in this era. Clearly, Chesterton himself paddled upstream. He saw the propensity in human nature to follow the path of least resistance, or more literally, to go with the flow. Now, it's easy to walk the well-trodden path or to lace your remarks with trite cliches. But in doing so, despite the ease and the comfort that our human nature enjoys, it prompts us to surrender our wills. When we ride with the tide, we expend little effort. Whereas the person who swims against the stream or the tide has a constant effort, a constant focus, and a constant determination. Chesterton was an ardent scholar of the social principles that gave rise to Christian democracy. And they're the principles that we enjoy in the ASP. Dorothy Day, another great model for ASP members, was an ardent disciple of the same principles. And we revere them both and acknowledge the heritage of those principles, championed politically through Christian democracy, having the same foundations. So there are 7 broad principles that I embraced at the outset of my campaign. And I said at the time, it was like finding the pearl of great value when I first found the American Solidarity Party. I was searching, having been a Democrat in my early life, and for a short time a Republican, and for a long time an unaffiliated voter, searching for a political home. When I saw these principles enunciated on the American Solidarity Party website, I was overjoyed. So the first principle I've already alluded to under the category of life issues. And Leah alluded to it as well. Human dignity. Every person is an unrepeatable miracle. And no person should be maligned, abused, discarded, or killed. Think about the common public policy headings that we hear every day in political speak. Each one of them is designed for the benefit of human beings. Education, healthcare, national security, commerce, even environmental protection. They're all designed for the benefit of human beings. So if government can craft policies to support human beings, why so often does it fail to sustain and uphold human dignity? In his social encyclical Laudato Si, Pope Francis wrote, "Human beings too are creatures of this world, enjoying a right to life and happiness and endowed with unique dignity." So we cannot fail to consider the efforts on people's lives of environmental deterioration, current models of development, and the throwaway culture. Think about that. How far we have fallen when we consider human life, like so many things that we consume, disposable. But look at the headlines every day for the evidence of this reality. Think about last week. We spent days riveted to news accounts about 5 men in a tiny submersible lost at sea. There were yeoman's efforts to save them, and they were all those efforts just and noble. But what about the child in the womb? What about the convict on death row? What about the Uyghurs in the Chinese work camp? The missionary in Africa who is being held hostage? The teenager being sex trafficked? The refugee on our southern border fleeing violence? Do they not deserve a similar concern and attention, or is it only the sensation? A second principle that deals with the fact that humans are social beings and living and interacting with others in families and communities. Marriage and family are central to society, and the ASP acknowledges that fact. Doing so doesn't disparage others who prefer a different public policy. Doing so recognizes the truth about our human nature. I'm blessed to be joined here in Texas, as Lauren alluded to, by my wife and 6 of the 9 of our children, their spouses, their significant others. It's been the first occasion for my first 2, my new young grandsons, Leo and Jonah, to meet, born just 11 days apart in April. It's a thrill to have a large family. It's a demanding but tremendous blessing. And there's no way to describe the joy of family get-togethers and the commitment of my family to gather here, even for a few days, to be with me on this occasion. It's so edifying, and I'm so grateful. And having a big family produces a full range of life experiences, too. We've had joys, we've had sorrows, we've had serious health conditions. We're dealing with student debt. We're dealing with difficulty finding affordable housing. We're dealing with difficulty finding proper income earning opportunities. I'm not sure having your washing machine break down a few days before you leave for a trip is first mentioned, but it's really fresh in memory. So life comes with low points, and we can all attest to that. But having a loving family to turn to in times like that, times of anxiety, is a natural thing to do. And those relationships are essential. And I think that's why God gives them to us. So back to the principles. But following up on one that I've been talking about in terms of relationships, it occurs to me that it's often overlooked as a facet of human interaction that we have a call to engage in society. We're called both to give and to receive, to participate in the common good rather than to be observers only. And that's in part why I'm here. Political engagement is part of that. So we might be apt to check that box as ASP members. And I'll add that it can become easy to be politically focused merely by watching the news or following it in social media, but the public forum is typically where the results are made. It's not limited to running for office, obviously. It's involving attending meetings and having your voice heard, sharing your perspectives, engaging, and seeking to go against the stream. And that segues nicely into a third principle, a principle about rights and responsibilities. Each human being has rights. Rights in nature, rather than rights merely in law. Government and society do not create such rights, but they often define them and codify them. Government should recognize these natural rights exist and protect them. Fundamentally, the right to life, the right to freedom and dignity, and just treatment, which flow, at least in our nation, and give us access to things like education and labor and healthcare and beyond. Rights are only fulfilled, however, when responsibilities are fulfilled. As ASP members, we advocate for public programs that serve human rights, but we're called to be responsible givers of respect and of service as well. So on to a fourth principle, preference for the needy among us. The poor you will always have with you, we're told by Jesus in Matthew 26. But also in Proverbs it reads, the generous will themselves be blessed, for they share their food with the poor. Whoever oppresses the poor to increase his own wealth or gives to the rich will only come to poverty. So justice is our goal as ASP members. We advocate for justice in word, but we must also strive for justice in action. I observe that messaging and concern among the major parties are often for divergent audiences. They have messages for donors, and they have messages for the rank and file voters. Now that divergence in messaging can often serve to keep the donors satisfied and generous, and the voters dependent and engaged and voting. But that's not justice. The government should introduce plans to eradicate problems rather than perpetuate them. And I don't find that government is doing that in this day and age. It follows that along with the rights of the poor, we recognize and respect the rights of workers. Human capital is a term that's really common in American parlance, but it's contrary, in my view, to dignity. Human labor is, of course, responsible for the production and delivery of countless goods and services to others on an everyday basis. But it never must be reduced to something that's just equal with other factors of production, where it falls under the will of controlling powers. We want to lift that dignity, as Leah alluded to. So with distributism, or the common good capitalism that we heard mentioned today, we acknowledge the dignity of human labor and seek for the control and possession of one's own tools of production. Distribution of the means of production to as many laborers as possible. It goes completely contrary to the way of the world, which is a consolidation of power and resources with mergers and acquisitions. Remember, small is beautiful and less is more. So let's leap to another principle, which we should all readily identify: solidarity. Beyond biological and extended families, we are one national and international human family without exception, for origin, racial, ethnic, religious, economic, or ideological differences. At the core of solidarity is recognition of the dignity of others and the promotion of justice and peace in a world that abounds with chaos and conflict. It means unity and not isolation, not separation. Finally, and by no means lastly, is the respect for our earthly home. We advocate for being landowners, but we are more accurately stewards. Our use and our possession of land and goods are finite because we are finite. We're material. We're mortal of body. Our human nature is governed by time, but throughout time, we are dependent on all of Earth's resources, and we must take care to preserve those resources, not just for our own needs, but for the generations to come. So all of these components shape the ASP views for a more just society. Human dignity, family and community, rights and responsibilities, concern for the poor and vulnerable, proper understanding of labor and respect for workers, solidarity and the common good, and care for the environment. Each is important in its own right, but all of them are complementary. We know from learning and experience that protection for human life is a standard, is the ideal. If not, why were we commanded, thou shalt not kill? If ownership were not the standard or the ideal, why would we be commanded, thou shalt not steal? If marriage and family were not the ideal, why were we commanded, thou shalt not commit adultery, and honor your father and your mother? And so as to avoid bearing false witness, let me declare also for truth as a standard. The upcoming presidential election cycle is not one for the American Solidarity Party to enter with anything but vigor. So as I accept the nomination of you, my fellow party members, as your candidate for President of the United States, I do so with gratitude, with determination, and with hope. Gratitude to God for the opportunity. Gratitude for your confidence as voters. Gratitude for the support of my family, my friends, and my campaign volunteers. Gratitude for the challenge of going against the stream. Determination to carry the message of the ASP to voters. Determination to act with civility and respect toward everyone, everywhere, but especially in the political forum. Determination to promote justice and peace and truth. Determination to see the task through to conclusion. Hope for the ears of those who are frustrated by the politics du jour. Hope for the hearts of those who are seeking a political home. Hope for unity and solidarity of the ASP party members. And hope combined with prayer for wisdom and humility. The duopoly is out there, dismissive of third parties, bent on keeping or regaining political power. Their interests are to the donor and elite classes, while their messaging may be directed elsewhere. But this must not be true of the American Solidarity Party. Our ambitions must remain large, our focus must be on the deficiencies and the human needs of our societies. Our expectations always must be rooted in hope. Dorothy Day wrote metaphorically about the modest efforts of her small network of people to assist the needy in New York City, the Catholic worker movement. She used the imagery of tossing a small stone into a still pond with the resulting ripples continuing to expand outward. As Lauren and I begin our campaign, we do so with confidence in the ASP as the most desirable political alternative for America. Still small, but capable of making those expanding ripples across the United States. We ask you for your support, and your presence here is a huge indication of that. I'm grateful. I think I can confidently speak for Lauren by asking also for your prayers. There's a huge amount of personal time and frustration and stress that come along. I didn't mention this before, did I? That come along with running a campaign. I knew that. I'm sorry if I didn't mention it, Lauren. And this is not a plea for sympathy, but it is a plea for prayer and solidarity. We're a small party with a big ambition ahead of us. Let's come together in gratitude, determination, and hope. Let's work to grow the American Solidarity Party in size and in influence. And let's start a cultural change in America. So rather than ending my talk, I'm going to begin a quest. and I'm going to recall a line from Jeremiah the prophet. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Let's do this. Let's be a force for good. Let's go against the stream. Thank you. God bless you.
Ask Lauren to come up. And I don't know if this is part of everybody else's faith tradition, but in my faith tradition, we do prayer circles. And so anybody who would like to come up, lay hands on our candidates and pray as God leads you. Father, as we commission these your servants, Peter and Lauren, for an incredible task, a task that will exhaust them at times, frustrate them at times. It will demand them to rise to heights they have never attempted, and yet you're calling them to that. So we ask your strength for them, your wisdom for them, your discernment for them. At every step in the coming months, every mile they travel, every speech they give, we ask your blessings and protection on them, that they will be able to complete the task that you have called them to. And if others would like to add to that, now would be a good time.
Spirit be upon them, that will speak the truth in love, and show that there is a door open out.
And God, I ask not just that you be with them, but that they know that you're with them, that they feel your presence in a tangible way, and that they draw on your strength when theirs runs out.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, that these are willing to serve you in this way. I pray that you would grant them blessing and your grace.
And Father, we also lift up their families, who will also be stressed during this time. Ask that you would be merciful on them and hold them together as families. Strengthen them to the task. And we ask all of this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.